I'm Jen here with Tested, and I'm here with Nemo Gould, and we're gonna check out Nemo's shop.
Welcome.
Thank you. So this is where it all happens. This is the shop and storage and everything.
I call it the trash mahal. The shop is sort of in two main functions. There's, layout and fabrication and the library. The biggest task that I face with all of this is to forget what the stuff is. It doesn't do any good to have a box of vacuum cleaner impeller covers because I don't make vacuum cleaners. I need it to be a box of, square to circular transition shapes.
Yep.
So the mental gymnastic of unlearning what everything is essential. So typically the other side of this rack where the shop is, it's a lot more practical. It's where fasteners, nuts, bolts, bearings, screws, gears, things that apply to most types of work can be found. The deeper in you go, the more esoteric it gets. I recently finished a series that was all interpretations of hand tools. So this is the collection of donor tools that I was pulling from, and I sort of kind of designed this area in reaction to a specific body of work. Behind you is more generally aluminum objects, which is kind of the oldest vein that I would have mined through the years would be cast aluminum stuff. Sometimes it's like brass winds up on the floor because it's so heavy. Bent wood chair legs go up high because I don't use them that often. Sometimes I feel truly crazy for hoarding scrap pieces of wood, but the most menial materials are in fact the most precious. There's no recycling value. There's no secondary market for rocking chair legs, so they don't exist unless you want to buy a rocking chair. So in some sense, the most mundane stuff has the most value to me because I can't just go and get them.
Because nobody else is saving it.
It's not worth anything. A phrase I often overuse is that if you can't find it, you don't own it. So after years of being a hoarder, I've learned that all this stuff is worthless if I don't know what's in those boxes. So I do spend a lot of time putting some sort of system behind how I own these things so that when I'm working and I hit a roadblock, I know what's at my disposal. I know what I can pick from to solve the riddle. And it feels tremendous when it works. Like I still amaze myself that I can fix Eggbeater from 1952 without going to the hardware store.
So a lot of the stuff I imagine that you take in is not in perfect condition or even good condition when you bring it into the shop. So there's part of your process, I imagine, that's some restoration work, right?
A lot of it. I sort of prefer the pound puppy antiques to the really good collectibles because if it's too nice, I feel ashamed messing with it. Again, if it doesn't need my help, I don't really want it. So the nicely made, beautiful, old, broken thing is sort of my favorite because it's already broken, so it no longer has to be what it was. And I get the challenge of fixing what needs to be fixed and then taking liberties with everything else. And that is circling back to the sort of skills question. How I learned most of what I know about how to make things is in attempting to fix old things. You have to sort of get into the head of the original designers. And this place starts to function almost as it's an archive for industrial technique as well as the objects, because in order for me to own the things fully, I feel like I have to know how to reverse engineer them fully also. At this point, the crazy is so deep that it's like magic. But it took a long time. In the beginning, it was just a guy with a bunch of stuff. But now it's actually kind of a high-functioning madness here.
I mean, if you have a system, then people can't call you crazy. I mean, it's...
They can, but it becomes more a badge of honor than a mark of shame.
So tell me about your process. I mean, obviously you collect stuff and it comes in here, and then what happens?
The collecting is definitely phase one. These tables usually function sort of like sketchbooks, where I'll lay out the things that I've found and look for relationships between them. That's where a piece always starts. It's not so much I have an idea, I need supplies. It's more like I have this and I have that. Do they go together? And eventually they do. And the really strong connections are the ones that lead to work. Sometimes that takes a long time, and things will just sit next to each other in the shop for days, weeks, months, years. I try not to really put a limit on it. You just have to wait until it feels right. And sometimes it's just a matter of waiting for some sort of critical mass to accumulate. I've been blowing my mind on this futile egg beater project over here because I found an old mechanical egg beater and thought it was really great, but it's already a wonderful thing. It didn't need my help. And then I found another one and thought, oh, well, two is cooler than one. And over time, a collection forms around an idea that isn't really formed. And I honestly do a lot of just fumbling in the dark like that until I get some sort of momentum and a project takes on its own life.
Okay, this is what I was going to ask.
This system developed sort of organically as a reaction to that project. The more I dug through the magazines, the more I started to see themes, and then I would have to go back into the piles to harvest more elements of a theme. And it just started to get really fun to see this whole taxonomy emerge that was like a flat file miniature version of the rest of the shop, where I'm collecting things and sorting them by their like properties.
I was going to ask, because I saw this stack of magazines and I was like, how are you knowing where to find things? But if there's a system, then you can research it and look for it in the file.
It took a while to form. In the beginning, it was just, paper everywhere. But then the compositions I haven't made yet got folders. So these are all other boxes that I didn't get around to making.
So these are things that you've collected for an idea that's going to happen.
This is how the box pieces started, was so what's going on in here? I'm trying to remember. I have all these images of money and currency, and then men with hats. And I'm interested in making mechanical, they're guys with hats, guys without hats. They're gonna lift their hat and then money spews out of their brains, right? I think, I don't even know. It was just, again, a theme I'm starting to see of these gentlemen, and then this materialism, and then realizing that if I overlay them just right, I can make these very simple sort of flip book style where you open the hat and get to see what's inside their head. So then, well, what's on their mind anyway? So there's a lot of ways to go with that, and I decided to just go with greed.
So you talked about using the tables as kind of your sketchbook. Do you draw anything out at all, or it's just kind of arrangement of parts?
I don't draw, and it's a thing I'm actually trying to change because I'm realizing that it's been enough years that I no longer can draw, and that I don't like that. So I'm getting back into drawing, but not with any relationship to sculpture. I got into sculpture out of a frustration with drawing. I found that I was drawing things that I wished that I could make, but I didn't know how, and then I would make a thing and then it wouldn't look like the drawing, and it was always upsetting. So I just sort of stopped and realized I was more productive if I just focused on materials and listened to what the materials had to say, what their strengths and limitations were, and let that direct the project. I also find that if I know exactly how a thing is going to turn out, I don't have the patience to make it. So a drawing takes a lot of the pleasure out of the project, and it's kept me from a lot of digital fabrication techniques. I'm largely computer illiterate. I kind of just don't want to know, Too much precision will ruin what I'm doing. there's all these elements of every project where I'll post them online, and a lot of people were saying, well, you know, a CNC machine could make short work of that. But they're forgetting the part that the decision to do that task wasn't planned. And there was no way to plan it. So in that moment, you could say, oh, well, you should have used a CNC machine, but that means deleting the 3 weeks that led up to it, and then deleting the possibility that I would learn anything from doing it myself, which is, again, why I want to do it. I want to find out what's the best I can do with my hands, turning the dials on the machine. And I'll go too far and I'll slip, and that'll be part of the piece. Or it's just too much of a blunder and I'll have to start over, but I'll be better next time. And that's the point. But for me, it's still this simple, like, two-branch decision tree. Do I have to sit at my computer, or do I get to get dirty fingernails? And it's that simple. I don't want to sit down and leave the creative space and get into a logic space unless I really have to. And so far, I just don't have to. There's always a way to do it with my hands, and that's the kind of life I want to lead, not the one where I sit down and plan it out so that it's perfect, because it's not that important to me that it's perfect.